Today. We are excited to have you. I'm getting us streaming here on YouTube. And I was actually thinking about this. We're kind of revamping the way that we're doing our webinars. And I don't know if we actually have an exact title for what we're doing on Wednesdays. Do we have a title? Joe,
Yeah,
do you?
open to suggestions.
Okay. I was thinking about that as we were going live, and I thought, oh, I don't know if we know exactly what to call this, but we are revamping what we're doing. So on Wednesdays, we're going to talk about type 2 diabetes reversal. And we're also going to talk about keeping a healthy heart. And we're going to, intermix those topics, I guess. We used to have separate webinars for both of them, but there was so much overlap that we decided let's just make it one on Wednesday. And then on Thursdays, we are going to open it up to topics that are outside of those categories. So we feel like we have a lot of you who are coming in and would love to pick Dr. Saunders' brain about other topics as well, right? And so this is going to be our opportunity for that. I'm so excited about it. We'll talk about a lot of the things that they have written for home cures that work, which is very fun because we're not just looking to reverse type 2, right? We want to keep our brain healthy, or we want to know what happens if we decide to go vegan, or we want to know about mental health, or I don't know. We want to know about all sorts of things, right? So I'm so excited to do this. Dr. Saunders is filled with so much information. So it's kind of like opening his brain and just giving it to all of us, which is so wonderful. So I'm excited about it. It will be fun.
Sharing is caring. I
And
just had a conversation this morning with somebody who came in. She is a therapist. That's her marriage and family therapy is what she does. And so and she sees individuals, and she's like, now that my kids are gone and I don't have connection with them, I feel kind of lost and alone. I don't know where I'm going. And I said, okay, so there's three things you need. And she says, yeah, I need to feel joy. I need to be empowered, and I need to have a plan. And so we talked about that, and how if you're really good at something, and you've developed a talent in some way, then you have something to give. And so first, you have a talent, then you develop that talent, and then you give that to others, and that's where you get the joy. And so I get a lot of joy in doing this every week. And I get to answer questions from, all over the world, and people who are kind of frustrated with a system that doesn't really give good information. They can go online, and then there's everything, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's what, and where does everything fit in? And so being able to make things simple, make things work. When we talk about the basics of diabetes, that's just really how simple it is. You're just really detoxing. When we talk about the basics of heart disease, you're really just making clots. That's how easy it is. Okay, let's figure out why. I love, and I have a gift for being able to make these complex problems really simple. And so this is my joy to be able to provide that for people.
I love it. We're so glad that you do. Thank you. So some of you may remember Dr. Saunders was going to a conference last week. And so we want to incorporate all of the things that he has learned into the webinar today. And so can you share a little bit with us, Dr. Saunders, about what that conference was, and then let us know what you've learned. But before you do, I just want to remind everyone that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. He's a wonderful doctor, but we ask that you would consult with your healthcare provider before you implement any of the things that we talk about here today. Okay, take it away, Dr. Saunders.
Okay, so what I went to is called an Integrative Mental Health Conference. And so it was really important. There were about 1,000 other doctors and therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists that were part of this conference, and they get together to talk about the integrative nature of mental health. And so we have stigma associated with mental health. Oh, you have schizophrenia. Ooh, that's weird. You have bipolar disorder. You have depression. Yeah, we got to be on a suicide watch because you have depression. You have anxiety and you're freaking out whenever you get in a car or whenever you go outside, or agoraphobia, or anxiety, can't sleep at night. All of these things, we call them mental illness. And so when I was just getting started 30 years ago at the County of Santa Barbara, they had what was called the Mental Health Carve Out. And carve out means you can't come to the clinic anymore for mental health. You have to go to the mental health clinic from now on. So they just like separated all of your physical health from your mental health. Well, guess what the integrative mental health practitioners are doing? They're putting it all back together and bringing it into one. And why is that important? Because mental problems are brain problems. There's something wrong with the function of your brain, which is why you get mental health. When you can't think clearly, you can't remember things, then you're going to get anxiety. It's like, oh no, did I forget something? Oh no, did it is? Oh no, this isn't working. Oh no, I can't think. I don't understand. I can't remember. Anxiety, right? That's what it is, anxiety. When you can't figure out how to do things or how your life is supposed to work, then you're going to get depressed. Depression is a hopelessness of, I can't figure things out. I can't make anything work. It's a hopelessness. And that's normal. It's normal to feel depressed when something doesn't work in your brain. When people get a stroke, for example, they got a stroke on one side of their brain and part of their body doesn't work. Okay, one side of their body doesn't work. And depression is almost always a result of that. That's part of what happens to the brain when it's not functioning well. Schizophrenia, it turns out, is a metabolic problem. So this one lecturer in there said he started out with not even knowing this. There was one woman who was 70 years old and she had suffered for 50 years with schizophrenia, being put on multiple different medications. They made her gain weight. The medications did, because medications take out the part of your brain that stops you from eating. So you just go eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. You start gaining weight. She was put, he didn't, but she was put on a program, and it was a special diet called the ketogenic diet. So, and she got all better, like got off her medication, lived another 15 years without any schizophrenia at all. No hallucinations, no delusions, no paranoia. She was normal and no medications at all. And then he had a patient that had gained a whole bunch of weight because of his schizophrenia medications. And this was like a severe case, the type of cases that they're refractory to medications. They're often put on multiple medications just to sedate them, so that they don't fly off the handle and do strange things. So they're chronically sedated. That was this guy. And so he gained a whole bunch of weight. He was put on a diet program, lost a bunch of weight, and his schizophrenia went away completely. He went off all medications and had a normal functioning brain. So what was the diet they went on? Guess what it was? It was phase 1 of our diabetes solution kit. That's exactly the diet that they went on. And it's a meat and vegetable diet. That's what it is. And that's what our diabetes solution kit is. It makes the brain function better. So if you have bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, even hallucinations, schizophrenia, paranoia, all of these mental health issues, and you have diabetes, do you know what? You go on phase 1 of the program and you will feel better. Your brain will work better and you will no longer have those issues. And it's not just with diabetes either. If you have heart disease, guess what? The number one cause of death among people with high, well, I guess it's the number one cause of death, but people with mental health problems, they die of heart disease at a very high rate at a young age of heart disease. And in fact, we've been talking about this with our cardiovascular webinar about the AI, artificial intelligence. They did a machine learning program, and they entered 500,000 people from the British health system. They entered them into this AI, and they asked the question, okay, so what causes death from heart disease? And guess what number 5 was? Serious mental illness. So serious mental illness, death from heart disease, where's the connection? The connection is the metabolism. It's the energy system. The heart's not working. Why not? Because it's not getting enough energy. And guess what? The brain isn't working. Why not? It's not getting enough energy. Gosh, you think that's the same problem? Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, it is. So one of the reasons we can put these two things together is the metabolic, which means energy system problems. So we think of what is metabolism anyway? Metabolism is all of the energy. It's everything. It's all the chemical reactions that your body is doing. And here's the weird thing is what controls your neurotransmitters in your brain, the production of neurotransmitters in your brain. You know what neurotransmitters are? That's what the nerves use to talk to each other. They talk to each other by neurotransmitters. And so they could say hello or goodbye, depending on which neurotransmitter they use. They can say, hey, I'm really excited, or no, slow down. They can do this with different neurotransmitters. So if you have something like a serotonin neurotransmitter, it's going to go, hey, calm down. It's okay. No problem. If you have a GABA neurotransmitter, it's going to be, okay, go to sleep, relax. And that's like alcohol works on the GABA system. That's the neurotransmitter that causes relaxation, right? I don't have anxiety. Things are good. They're okay. If you have something like norepinephrine, it's like go, 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 go. And people are going, oh, my heart's beating out of my chest and I feel like I'm being pushed. Why? Because you have all this norepinephrine or epinephrine, the neurotransmitters. So these are the things that the nervous system used to talk. Guess what determines how they're made or determines the production of this? So you think, people are on Prozac or different SSRI medications, and you think that it's increasing the serotonin. You know what it's actually doing? It's not increasing the serotonin. It turns out serotonin has nothing to do with it. It's increasing energy production. It's increasing mitochondria. That's how they work. And that's how the system works. So either you're increasing the energy production with drugs or you're suppressing the energy production with drugs. And that's how these drugs are working. Because it's the mitochondria that make the energy that determine which neurotransmitters are being made, which hormones are being made, how much cholesterol is being made, whether it's excitatory or suppressive. Either way, it's the mitochondria where the energy is made that all this is done. That's the metabolism. The metabolism is all of the chemical reactions, and these are all controlled by energy. So why do people die when they don't get enough oxygen? It's because they can't make energy. That's why they die. They can't make energy. So all of these issues, these problems that we're dealing with, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, neuropathy, kidney disease, these are all related to energy production. That's what it all comes down to. And the mental health is also, whether you have depression, anxiety, it doesn't matter what bipolar, attention deficit disorder, it doesn't matter what it is, it's an energy problem. And so, like, people with attention deficit are given amphetamines, for example. Guess what amphetamines do? They increase energy production. That's how they work. It's really all about energy.
Wow, so interesting. So I'm also hearing that our diet is a little bit more important than we may think always, and can really affect nearly everything happening in our body. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So I've talked a lot about fasting and how great that is for the body. Phase one of the Diabetes Solution Kit is a ketogenic diet, which is sort of like a long-term fast in certain sense, and that is in the sense that you make ketones. So in that sense, it's kind of important to understand that you are making ketones so that you can use that for energy, and you make your body burn fat for energy. And so remember, we talked about this. You need 60% of your energy has to come from fat. And if you have insulin resistance, then you're not going to get 60% from fat. You're going to get less than that, and which means you just make less energy, which means your brain doesn't work as well, your heart doesn't work as well, and everything else in your body doesn't work as well.
So is there like
So
a test that can tell you if how your energy is doing?
yeah,
What can we do?
there's okay. So the tests that we always talk about, guess what those are? Those are the tests. Those are the ones. So look at your insulin level, your C-peptide, blood glucose, and hemoglobin A1C. Those four tests are going to give you an idea of insulin resistance. You should also look at a lipid panel. If your triglycerides are higher than 100, then you are inefficient. You're less efficient at using fat for energy. And that's really important. That means you're making less energy. And that means your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your muscle, everything is less functional because there's less energy to go around. So if you're wondering why you're fatigued, that's often the case. So triglycerides are another one. That's a number 5 for energy production. And then I have some specialty tests that I do in people that that I think have a concern, where you can actually look at the Krebs cycle. It's called an organic acids test or an OAT test. The organic acids test looks at, it's interesting. It looks at the urine, or what's being excreted, or what's not being used by the body. It's kind of like, let's say you had a next door neighbor, and they move in, and you've never met them, and you go knock on the door, nobody answers the door, but every day the garage opens up and a car goes out, and it's tinted windows, you don't see who's in the car, they drive off, and then the garage closes, and then at the end of the day, the car comes up, garage opens up, they go in, close, and you go knock on the door, nobody answers the door, and you're like, wow, these are weird neighbors, that I don't know anything. I don't know if they're black or white, or I don't know if they're male or female. I don't know if they're kids or adults or old people. I don't know anything about them. So what you do is one day the garage opens up, and the car goes out, and the garage closes. And so you go over to their trash can, you dump out their trash can, and you start sifting through their trash. And you find out a whole bunch of things about them. You find out about maybe where they work, maybe where their bank is, maybe what kinds of things they do, maybe their name, maybe their age. You might find out a lot of things about them by sifting through their trash. You can know what they eat and all of that kind of stuff. Well, that's what this test is. This organic acids test is essentially sifting through the trash of your body and saying, oh, well, you have an awful lot of ammonia, therefore you have a problem with breaking down proteins, and you have a lot of this organic acid or that organic acid. Why is all this glutaric acid there? Well, it usually means there's an enzyme abnormality. So you can tell a lot about the function of the body and the energy of the body by looking through the urine, what's going out in the trash, right? So I often use that test in people who have, like real energy problems and they're not getting better. And I'm usually looking for a genetic abnormality in energy production.
We're getting some questions here. Let's see. Um, okay, so Anonymous, we have a few different questions from Anonymous. How does organic frozen vegetables compare with organic fresh vegetables nutritionally? The reason I'm asking is that I have vision issues, and it's hard for me to identify blemishes on fresh produce.
Okay. Actually, what's really interesting is in looking at the nutritional content of frozen vegetables versus fresh vegetables, there is some benefit to the frozen vegetables being more nutritious than the fresh vegetables. Why is that? Well, when they have to pick it green, ship it somewhere, and while it ripens, you actually lose some of the benefit of that produce. So even things like lettuce, you don't think lettuce has very much nutrition in it, but as it sits around, it loses some volatile organic compounds that are very important for your body, such as sulfur compounds. Broccoli, the same thing. The more broccoli sits around, the less nutritious it is. So when they pick it ripe, like it's the perfect time to pick it, right? It's not picked too early. Whatever the produce is, they pick it ripe and then they freeze it. Then that maintains that, and so then it can be shipped to you, and if it's whatever weeks or a month or whatever, and then it sits in your freezer, you actually have more nutrition than something that was fresh and sitting out for a while. So yeah, it's not all, or because partly of that is that the fresh produce is often picked unripe or green, and then allowed to ripen or exposed to a gas. I forgot what the name, ethylene gas, to ripen it, like fruit and stuff like that. So one of my big pet peeves is apricots, because apricots are picked green and they always taste blah. They look great in the store, and I go, oh, those look so good. But you know what? If you can't get an apricot off a tree, then forget it.
Do you have your own tree?
Yeah, I got 3 of them now.
I was thinking that you did. Okay, this is a really good question. I actually saw someone post about this today in somewhere on social media in a group that I'm in. But Anonymous says, do air fryers damage foods nutritionally?
All cooking damages foods. All processing damages foods. And so the answer is yes. But the air fryer is supposed to cook at a very high temperature for a shorter period of time, and that's what the frying is. So it's kind of like a barbecue where you're making more of what are called advanced glycation end products, where the sugars bind to the proteins because of the high temperatures. And so yes, but okay. So having said that, the answer is yes, but, and the but is, for heaven's sakes, if you boil something for 20 minutes until it's soft, like, I don't know, broccoli, you boil out most of the nutrition in it, and it's worse for you than if you do an air fryer and make a few advanced glycation end products, AGEs. So yeah, I know we have that in our book, the AGEs and how bad they are. And they are, if you live on them, that's a bad thing. But there are worse things that you can do to food.
All right. Aside from following all the rules when checking blood pressure, such as body position, cuff placement, etc., which blood pressure machine is ideal or most accurate? Or, what about the cuff placement on the arm or the wrist? Or is there any way of knowing whether the reading is inaccurate or individual related?
Yeah. Um, there have been studies on these, and the wrist ones are more variable. And in other words, they can be just as accurate as the arm one, but it's more variable because people don't do it just right. And it's pretty easy when you put a cuff around your arm, then your upper arm is at the same level of your heart, and it's pretty hard to mess that up. You're not going to be going like this or something. Whereas with your wrist, you're moving it around, and you're not keeping it, right against your chest or whatever. So there's variability in that, and so it's more of the way it's used, and not that one type of machine is better than another. As far as brands go, I haven't seen any studies on brands that indicate that any one brand is better than another. And so the type of machine that you use is, you know what? Here's the thing. If you're taking your blood pressure, just follow the directions on the label. It tells you, put your, this little mark goes right in the middle of where your arm is, where your arm fold bends. And that's where it goes. And then if you just follow the directions, it's going to be close, and it's going to, work okay.
Okay. Another question here. What does one do with a low ability to digest fats? No gallbladder, but when I did have a gallbladder, I still could not digest fats enough, even with added enzymes, including lipase.
Okay. Um, to digest fats is to break down into fatty acids so they can be absorbed really well. And if you're adding lipase, sometimes especially if you don't have a gallbladder, sometimes you need to add bile acids. You can get ox bile extract, and you can take that with your food. And sometimes that's helpful. But some people just don't digest and absorb fats very well. So you're always going to have some fats, but maybe it's just that you don't solubilize a large amount of fat. So if you eat fat in small amounts, then that should help a lot. I don't know. I deal with this sometimes, and find that people who take the ox bile extract or the bile have pretty good results with it.
Okay. Maria says, I have CVD. Would you recommend the keto diet in this case? Or it should be more whole food, plant-based diet, low fat?
Okay, so cardiovascular disease. So if you have cardiovascular disease, your next step is to ask the question, why? So why are you making clots in your arteries? Why aren't your clots dissolving? So looking at why that's happening is the first thing. Is it due to inflammation? Then deal with inflammation. Is it due to a metabolic problem? Then deal with the metabolic problem. And so in some cases, when people have the like insulin resistance and heart disease, they're better off doing a ketogenic diet because that will improve the metabolism and allow the heart to function better, because the heart needs fat to generate energy. So without fat, it doesn't generate energy very well. And the ketogenic diet is training the body to burn fat. So you're allowing the body to use fat for energy. And that will help the heart to function better. So in 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 that case, really, your question is why, and once you find out why, then it'll be obvious what needs to be done.
Okay. Bill sent a message from Australia. He said, I have one meal a day and I make my own natural supplement drink. My body is great. I have not taken my heart meds for 3 weeks. My blood pressure is good. My blood tests are between 5.3 millimoles to 6.3. Is that right? Millimoles per
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
each morning. So Bill, our friend from Australia, is doing really well.
Good work. Good work.
Yes. Love it. Okay. We had another question here. On phase 1 diet, should I take 1 or 2 synochroma, or does it depend on the reaction of the vitamin? What determines 1 or 2 of the vitamin?
Okay. What determines 1 or 2? I guess the best way to look at that is you're on phase 1 and you're doing phase 1 and your blood sugar is not coming down, even though you're making ketones, then you would go to 2. And then you would take 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon with food. And so that would be the best way to determine it, because the really what improves the blood sugar is the diet. So it's the phase 1 diet is the part, and then the synochroma is just a support.
All right. Another question here from Angela. Good afternoon. Speaking of afternoon, our friend Bill, my friend or our Jeremy at our team just reminded me of this. So when Bill hops on here from Australia, it's like 3 a.m. there, just so you guys are all aware. So that's some dedication, Bill. You're impressive. But look at what it's done for you. You've been able to completely transform your health. You're doing so well. And so we're so thankful that you are joining us and letting everyone know how you're doing. It's awesome. Okay. Let's see. Angela said, can you advise on what digital book to get that helps ulcerative colitis? Thank you.
Okay. Ulcerative colitis is not a single entity. It's not one thing that people that have the symptoms of ulcerative colitis, meaning they have literally ulcers that are often bleeding in their colon, and this inflammation of the colon it can be really bad to the point where people have had their colons removed entirely, just to get away from the pain and the diarrhea and the cramping and the problems. It's not a minor problem, but there's not one thing that's the cause of it. So it's important to ask the question why, to look at the beneficial bacteria, to look at any infectious diseases that might be causing it. Some people with ulcerative colitis have a genetic problem where they don't make fucose, and so they have to actually take that. Others have the wrong kind of bacteria, or just some kind of infection. There's a mycobacterium that's actually related to tuberculosis that can cause this. Or parasites. And the treatments are very different depending on what the underlying cause is. So since it's not a single entity, but it's a set of symptoms that has a lot of different causes, your next step is to find out what's causing the ulcerative colitis.
I will just mention one thing that helps, and I actually had a discussion with a GI doctor about this recently. We were talking about VSL3, which Dr. Saunders had recommended to me, I think 10 years ago, as someone who has some GI stuff. And he said that the Mayo Clinic had done a bunch of studies just on that probiotic alone, and it only works for people with ulcerative colitis And for some reason, I don't know exactly how it works, but if you give it to someone who didn't have ulcerative colitis, they would get no benefit from it. And I thought that was really interesting. So that might be something to check out. Do you still hear a lot about that probiotic, Dr. Saunders?
No, not as much anymore.
Okay.
They were advertising it a lot, and insurance stopped covering it, and then it just became
Mm-mm.
another probiotic. I think they even
Sure.
changed the name, but yeah.
Anyway, that might be something just to look at, just something that I've been hearing and I've experienced benefit from it too. So, okay, let's see here. Next question. Which glucometer do you recommend?
Okay, glucometers. The handheld glucometers have a value, and they give you an idea of where your blood sugar is, but it's within 20%. So it's not going to be like accurate. And is there one better than another? Well, they often say they are. But I don't think that's really important. I think, you could get a glucometer. I forgot. I got mine online. I forget what the brand was.
There's that Stello. Is it Stello? I think.
Yeah, Stello is a great, and that's the Dexcom. Dexcom 7 is the same as Stello. And the Stello you don't even need a prescription for, and it's a continuous monitor that works. It'll get you close, but don't look at the number as an absolute. Look at the number as uh, as relative. So if you're bumping along at around 120, and all of a sudden you eat something and it goes up to 200, okay, it bumped. That there's something in that diet that messed up your blood sugar.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Gloria says, how much cheese is too much cheese when on the keto diet? I'm thinking sticking to protein and vegetables is the best way to go, but cheese keeps calling me as a good choice, but maybe not so much. Thank you.
I don't know. Some people don't tolerate cheese very well. Some people, cheese is a milk protein that is broken up into little peptides. And sometimes those peptides really mess people up by creating constipation. So it's not that everybody should be eating cheese, and some people just have to stay away from it. Other people, they do fine on cheese and they can eat a ton of cheese. So there isn't a specific amount for any individual. It is how well do you do on cheese. So if cheese is a protein you digest well and do well on it, great.
Any thoughts about raw cheese versus other cheeses?
Yeah, I looked into that because my wife would only go to this one store, Trader Joe's, and get the raw cheese, and that was all she would bring home was raw cheese, and it comes in little, I don't know. Anyway, there's not a lot of it, so I said, so she get a whole stack of them, and I said, why don't you just get one of those big blocks? She goes, because they're not raw. So, what is it about pasteurization that makes cheese, especially, but any milk products different? Do you know what? The change in proteins makes a difference. Some people do not digest heated proteins very well and do better on raw cheese. And so there can be a significant difference, and there is a difference in proteins. And I mean, it's obvious when you look at like an egg. So you have an egg that has the egg white and it's all liquid and everything. And then you put it into a hot pan and it becomes solid. And you go, wow, that's just pure protein. And it changed just because it was heated. And it changed into actually for the egg, once you heat the egg white proteins, they're more digestible. So the best way to eat an egg is to have the whites hard and the yolk soft. That's the best way to eat an egg. Milk, it turns out, It depends, and some people just don't tolerate the pasteurization because it does change the protein.
All right. Lots of comments about cheese. So people like their cheese. We got cottage cheese, Parmesan, lots of different ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What did I miss? Okay, let me just go to another one. All right, Rosario says, why do you need malate plus glycinate plus citrate in magnesium? Does your magnesium spray work better than a pill for magnesium?
Okay, so the malate, glycinate, citrate. Okay, those are called chelating agents, or they're chelators, because the body likes those and brings them in. And so magnesium has to be absorbed by a specific, it has to be specifically brought in. And um, it competes for absorption with other like calcium and zinc and other minerals. So if you chelate it and you have it bound to a glycinate, for example, then the body goes, ooh, I want that glycinate, and pulls it in, and the magnesium comes with it. So that's where the advantage of having those chelated forms of magnesium. And then as far as the spray goes, the answer is probably not. So the spray is not better than a pill. And the reason we have the spray is for people who, if they take a pill, they get diarrhea. And so some people do that. Magnesium, even small amounts, can cause some people to get diarrhea. So we have this form that's a spray, and it requires an awful lot. So you have to spray, 50 sprays all over your body. It's not like you're counting like squirt 2 spritzes and that's it. No, it's like you're putting a significant amount on your body. So and does it work better? No. The levels, if you look at magnesium levels in the blood, for example, they don't rise significantly after the spray. Because it's absorbed through the lymph system. It doesn't like dump into the blood. It gets distributed through the body, through the cells.
All right. Good question here. Maria says, can you do a plant-based keto diet?
Okay, yes, you can. And the only problem with the plant-based keto diet is it's really hard to get calories. So you have to like eat coconut oil and yes, you can do a vegan ketogenic diet. In fact, I had a um, a patient that did that, and we looked it up, and it was the, the food looked pretty good, and you only get like 20 grams of carbohydrates a day, and it's all plant-based, and it's pretty hard to get enough calories. You have to eat a lot of food to get enough calories. Broccoli doesn't give you a lot of calories. Celery does not give you a lot of calories. Lettuce does not give you a lot of calories. Brussels sprouts, you got to eat a lot of food to get a good plant-based keto diet.
Okay. Sib says, is there a best time to take your blood pressure?
You know what? I often have my patients do their blood pressure at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And the reason for that is because there's a diurnal variation of blood pressure that goes along with the circadian rhythm. And so the adrenal glands put out a whole bunch of adrenaline, the cortisol, and the blood pressure goes up in the morning and then it comes down at night. And so when you take your blood pressure, sometimes for some people, it makes a big difference. And if you only do it once a day, then you don't know if there is a difference. And so I've had a lot of people who during the day their blood pressure is high, but if I have them do it in the morning and at night, they say, "Oh yeah, my morning blood pressure is 150 over 90, but my evening blood pressure is 120 over 75." Then I'm like, "Okay, you have normal blood pressure." because our question is, does it come down to normal when you're quiet and relaxed? So of course, when you release a bunch of cortisol, your blood pressure is going to go up a little, but that's not the issue. The issue is, does it come down to normal? So yeah, taking your blood pressure twice a day is a good idea to see if you have that difference between morning and night.
All right. Okay, wrong one. Okay. Stoico says, what do you think about Dr. Lustig's work and website for food filters? I don't know if you can see that or if you're familiar with him at all, but
Dr. Lustig, yeah.
okay.
No, I don't know. I don't know about the food filters.
Okay. Another question here from Anonymous. A heart doctor has changed me from Manjaro to Farxiga as I have been recently diagnosed with a lower valve that has corrosion that pertains to my lower left ventricle. Now they're doing more tests, CT scans, and nuclear imaging scans, and also checking for rheumatoid factor panel S or sigma and GIA. My question is if I can change my diet to follow the diabetic one you talk about, will this improve all of these conditions? The doctor also said I'm not taking up the right protein either.
Huh. Okay. So yeah, Monjaro is an injectable, and what it does is causes you to make more insulin, not be as hungry, and it sort of changes the metabolism by doing essentially what glucagon does, part of it. And then, okay, so if that's not working, then Farxiga. Farxiga is completely different. That's an oral medication, works in the kidneys to make you just urinate out more glucose so that you lower your glucose. And it's also a diuretic. And so they probably wanted you to have the diuresis because of the heart valve problem. So if you're dehydrated, then you put less pressure on those heart valves to lower the pressure. And that may be why they wanted to do that. If it's in the left ventricle, then yeah, there must be a reason for that. Rheumatoid factor, yes, that can cause valve problems, inflammation of the valve. So looking for a source of inflammation would be a good idea. And that's part of what they're doing now, is looking for a source of inflammation. So the question is, if you were to do the phase 1 of the program, this ketogenic diet, then would that help this problem? And the answer is maybe. So again, you have to know why it is. If it's just an inflammatory condition, then yes, a ketogenic diet does lower inflammatory markers. It does lower inflammation. It does improve the function, the energy function. And so in that case, yes, it would help. But if this is an autoimmune type of problem, then it may not be helpful for that. You might have to do something else like an autoimmune paleo diet, for example.
Okay, Elliot says, oops, no, not Elliot, I'm sorry. I think it's Glenn or Glenny. Can caffeine elevate blood pressure?
Well, yes and no. For most people, it doesn't, but for some people, it does. It blocks something called adenosine, which has a relaxing effect on the body. So people who rely on that for relaxation tend to get higher blood pressure, but they often don't feel good on caffeine. They often get palpitations and they feel kind of wired and don't like caffeinated things. So there are people that still have that. They don't like caffeinated things. But as far as raising the blood pressure, you can test to see if that happens to you. It's really simple. Take your blood pressure twice a day and then go off caffeine and continue taking your blood pressure twice a day and see what the difference is when you're on versus when you're off.
Okay. Anonymous says, is dark chocolate allowed on phase 1 of the diabetes solution diet?
That is really interesting. I would answer no. just because, well, bitter chocolate's okay. So, when my kids did it, my kids, I actually offered them $100 if they would go for a year without eating any extra sugar. And there were specific things they were allowed to eat. Their grandmother made jelly, and so they were allowed to eat that. So there were certain things they could have, but they couldn't have any candy or sweets or any sugary foods or anything like that. And they ate baker's chocolate. And if you ever had that, it's like it's chocolate without sugar. It has no flavor. I don't know. It does kind of taste chocolate, but yes, you can have baker's chocolate. But the answer is, if it has sugar in it, you should avoid it.
All right. Okay, I think that's it for questions, actually. Sib says, this is my first Zoom session with Dr. Saunders. Great information. Thank you. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, everyone. And thanks all of you for hanging out. Thanks, Joe, for being here. There's Joe. Hold on. Let me change my view so you guys can see him. Is he still there? There he is. There's Joe.
Hello.
If you've never seen Joe before, I bet you've seen it. Actually, that's not true. I bet everyone has seen Joe. You've probably seen him in some videos. But anyway, we will have another webinar tomorrow where we are going to talk about some more fun health topics. So make sure that you tune in. Of course, we record these. They're available on YouTube. Go to bartonwebinar.com. Find all the information for that. You can also use code webinar25, one word, to save 25% on anything that you see there. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, Dr. Saunders.
All right. Bye.
Bye. And bye.